on the topic. We'll reserve the questions until the end of the session. And I'd like to add just one thing over here, that back in 1962, before imposing sanctions on Cuba, President Kennedy bought 1,200 Cuban cigars because he was really fond of it. I think he did not get to finish them all, but he did buy them. So I believe that United States and Cuba have the relation that normally it's between a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law. It's always estranged. A mother-in-law is never happy with the daughter-in-law, but still cannot live without her. So without further ado, we'll move on to the next session. I would like to request His Excellency Ambassador Shahid Amin Khan, the fourth World Chairman of International Human Rights Commission, to share with us his intellectual viewpoint on the issue at hand. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Rida, and it's an honor to speak on behalf of the international.
Sir, kindly, could you please speak a little louder? Your voice is not audible, sir.
It's an honor. Thank you very much, Rida. It's an honor for me, and on behalf of the International Human Rights Fraternity, to represent the international community of human rights, being as a diplomat on the issue which has been raised by the Excellency Ambassador General. International community is fully aware the outcome of the US sanctions over Cuba and its implication on the people of Cuba. It's not new for us that we stand for the people of Cuba into the UN Human Rights Council and the United Nations General Assembly to lift the sanctions by the US Congress, which has been imposed by the United States government on the people of Cuba and the government of Cuba. Obviously, the Cuban government is the real representative of the people of Cuba. No matter whatever the norms of democracy and laws of the human rights has been translated into the for the personal benefit of any country or for any regime, the international humanitarian law is very much clear on the situation what the Cuba has faced. It is very much clear that the Cuban peoples also need, and the Cuban government also need, the fair means whatever the international community and other members of the United Nations are enjoying according to the charter and the respect of sovereignty. It's unfortunate that the few countries, including United States of America, are imposing their own agenda on a few countries. It's not only if we are, I mean, from 1962, Cuba is facing the attitude of United States, which is used against the people of Cuba for their economic welfare, for their economic stability and growth, which is a very much essential and which is a very much incorporated into the international norms and international standard for respect of a sovereignty of any country. As Rida in introduction has said, that the UN General Assembly took this opportunity to pass the resolution. And look at, out of 196 members, 184 stand with the Cuba. And what the American ambassador over there said, that our sanctions are just to restore the democracy and principle of human rights. And they did not consult what the human rights advocates around the world are saying against that sanctions. This is what I call it the Decoralian laws and thinking towards the countries, those who are not accepting the law of might. Cuban foreign minister said in the General Assembly before the vote that $9.1 billion has been lost during the first tenure of 2019 and 2020 just because of the sanctions. And this is a suffering of, the well articulated by the ambassadors from the year to month and month to the days, that how much a 40 million per day Cuban peoples are losing their economic growth and their right to live, right to grow, right to be live like a human being. When the one country, any sanction, first of all, it was my plea into the United Nations Human Rights Council, officially, which has been recognized by the UN Human Rights Council, that any sanction imposed by any country to any country or region means a violation of human rights charter according to the fundamental principles of the human rights. So there is nothing like that any law or any action can be legitimized by the international community against the people of Cuba. This is a very much clear, and it should be, this wise is not a my wise, it is the wise of our international community. We are against the sanction. We are making a friends of a Cuba panel into the US Congress and Senate. We are advocating the International Human Rights Commission, particularly advocating into the into the US Congress and into the US Senate. And we was having a two in 2017 and 18. I particularly met the group of senators and group of congressmen, and I briefed on them that how the United States are getting embarrassment due to these all sanctions, whatever they made on by the US on Cuba and some of other countries as well. But on a particular level, I'm very much convinced that the sanctions are against the norms of human rights. When it is against the norms of human rights, it's mean they are nothing to do with the democracy, because democracy is guaranteed through the human rights principles. If the human rights principles are violated, then that is called not a democracy, that is called the dictatorship over the world and over the heads of our peoples. So this is my take, that whatever the Cuba is facing, international community with a clear vision against the sanctions, and we are doing whatever possible to do to get out the Cuba from these sanctions draconian laws, which has been made by President, starting by the President Eisenhower, ended by the President Trump. And let us see that at this moment, everybody knows that due to the pandemic, the present American administration is in a difficult situation because of pandemic situation. And America is also, American people are also suffering whatever the the cosmetics statements, cosmetic activities are seen by the world. The situation is not like that into the United States of America. I think the ambassador and everyone knows about the reality that what's going on in the United States of America. The American administration, the Joe Biden administration, is the first administration who is suffering from climate crisis to the COVID crisis. They are suffering from the human rights crisis to the democracy in fragility. They are suffering there in their own home but imposing the agenda, a so-called agenda, onto the sovereign nations. So the shift is going to become, but it takes time, and we hope that we should not see uh, the situation like an 80s, what had happened in our Asian countries on the downfall of the economic downfall of the Soviet Union. The pupils are taking the take that was a struggle against the Soviet Union, which led toward the situation and downfall of the Soviet Union. But that was an economic downfall, and I'm sure that the United States should not face the same situation, because if you will look at the map of the United States, 52 states are in one union. It is just like in Soviet Union. So let me assure that the international community ambassador is standing with the people of Cuba. It's a very loud and clear message for the people of Cuba and government of Cuba, and we are doing our best. We are doing to join the hands of the all human rights fraternity to stand to lift the sanction over the people of Cuba. It will take time. I'm sure it will take time, because when the United Nations General Assembly resolution is not respected, uh, the diplomacy of the back door will work. It will take time. But anyway, these are all sanctions are against the international norms, Charter of the United Nations. It's against of the humanitarian, international humanitarian law. It's against of the fundamental principle of the human rights. It's against of the principle of democracy, because I cannot I cannot impose the thinking and the principle of democracy over anybody, because everybody defines the principle of democracy by their own means. This is the way, and thank you very much. I hope I took a lot of time for of you, because it is the